All right, we're back. We are Game 2015 in the winter 2018 semester, and it's week 6, part 2 of our broadcast. We just finished talking about Blender, some organic modeling techniques, and how we brought it into Mixamo. And we actually exported from Mixamo these FBXs. I want to take them into Unity now. And to do that, we want to create a Unity project. Notice these are all the files for me that I'm using. I'm going to take the blend model right now, just dump it into this file. I don't need that right now, but I need all this. So I'm going to start off with Unity. The latest version of Unity, or Unity actually has been updated as of this recording. I haven't updated it yet, but the latest version of Unity is 2017.3.1F1, if I'm not wrong, something like that. I'm going to be updating it soon. This one I'm going to put up on GitHub as well, so you can have this this version. Again, I'm going to make a new project. I'm going to call it Game2015-Winter 2018-Lesson 6A. I'm not going to turn on analytics. I'm just going to create a new project. Now, the first part of every time I create a new project in Unity, what I want to do is organize my files. So like I did before, I'm going to make a scripts folder, a scenes folder, a models folder, an animation folder, and so on. So that way I keep organized. I think it's important because otherwise, especially with now, look, I've only created a few assets. And by the way, I mean, I'm sure that whoever's in charge of art for your teams can go crazy nuts and make a lot more using Mixamo. There's lots and lots of stuff that you can do. So again, I'm going to go in here and go create new folder. I'm going to make it _scripts. I'm going to say create new folder _scenes. I'm going to go create new folder animations. Right? We're going to make another folder called models. A little bit different between the two. I don't think I need much more than that at this point. Animations, models, scripts, and scenes. So I'm going to save my scene. I'm going to save it inside my scenes folder and call it main. There we go. And I want to import all of my animations into the animations folder. So in my animations folder, I'm going to go assets, import new asset. I'm going to look at the desktop. I'm going to see all of these things, like everything except for T-pose. I don't want T-pose, right? So not including T-pose, I want everything else. Okay, so all this is my animation stuff, my animation sequences. So there it is. All of them come nicely into Unity. I'm also going to, in models, this is where I'm going to import my T-pose. Import new assets. I'm going to import T-pose inside there. This is inside my models. All right, good. So I have all that. And just from a cleanup perspective, I'm just going to take this all off my desktop because I don't need it anymore, and put it inside of my folder that we had before. All right, so this is my models. I'm going to pull my, I'm going to go to my animations first. Let me talk about this a little bit. For my animations, what you can do right now is you can play all these animations in Unity. So if I click on hit, and if I go preview by pressing plus, you can see what the hit will do, right? The little small preview in Unity, so you can see what it does. Now, someone asked me earlier, another student asked me in class earlier, hey, do I need all of these models? I have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 models for different animations. And the answer is, in this case, short answer is yes, you do. Because each rig, you'll have a different rig for each model. Now, what Unity does is it optimizes, right? And even though I have multiple models, it doesn't care about the model necessarily. It cares about the clip, right? There's a clip that goes along with this model. And in order for me to do that, I need something called an Animator Controller. So I'm going to create inside here, I'm going to make a new, something called a Animator Controller. And I'm going to call this Animator. Okay, if I double click here, it's our classic finite state machine, right? That's what this thing is. Mechanim is what it was used to be called, right? Now it's just our animator. So I have an entry point for my animator, and I want to make my entry point my idle animation, right? So remember, I don't have a model yet, But what I'm doing is I'm targeting which animation I'm going to show first. So I'm going to go into my animations folder and grab my idle animation and pull it in. And now what it does is it creates an idle state. Okay? And I want to see this in a second. But the next step is I'm going to go to my models folder for a second. Here's my model folder. And I'm going to pull in my enemy in T-pose. I want you to think about T-pose as the bind pose. So by default, my enemy is going to start like this. And then I'm going to modify him, right? So I'm just going to rename this, instead of enemy, a T-pose. I'm just going to rename it enemy. There it is. And inside my animations folder, one more thing I got to do for my idle animation is, if you notice, if I scroll down, I want to turn on loop time. So loop time must be turned on for my idle animation. If I don't turn on loop time, it won't loop forever. Okay, which is what I want. Let's try this out. I should be able to see my object. Now, a couple things to note. Here. If I go to my scene, my camera is looking at the back of my model. So let's modify my model so it's turning at the camera. So I'm just going to rotate this by 180 degrees so it looks at my camera. All right, so there it is. If I look at my camera now, I can see my model. And if I press play, I should be able to see my deformed model. But wait a minute, we forgot something. Inside of my enemy model, my game object, there's a place where it has controller. I got to pull this Animator Controller in here. And now it has some instructions on how to deform my model. So let's press plus and play. And when I do this, you can see that now I have my idle state. And my idle state is actually deforming my model. It's using the idle animation to do what it's supposed to do. Okay, there it is. It's idling, right? So what I want to do in this demo, right, is I want to put a little piece of code. Have you guys done this before? Used Mecanum to do any kind of 3D animation in Unity? 3D animation? Yeah? So you know the next steps. The next steps for some of you is I need to put a little script involved so when I press my buttons, I can test my walk cycle, okay? So first I need to modify my enemy animator. So I'm going to go to my enemy animator. I'm just going to pull this aside, like on my idle state. And I want to put in my walking state for now. So I'm going to pull my walking state in here. And I want to transition between my idle state and my walking state. So I'm going to right-click on idle, make a transition. And I also would like to transition from the walking state back to the idle state. So I'm going to right-click on walking, make a transition, go back to idle. And I also want to do is when I transition from idle to walking, I don't want to have exit time. What exit time does is it waits for the animation to finish before the next one starts. And I don't want that to happen. In fact, I want my blending in the middle to be very minimal, right? Same thing over here on the left. I don't want there to be exit time. And the way I want to do my animation is I don't want there to be too much mixing in the middle. All right, good. So I've got that going on. So it's going to go from idle to walking. However, I need some way of controlling my walk. So I'm going to add a parameter up here on the top. This is all in my animator. I'm going to click the plus button, and I'm going to add a new integer parameter. The integer parameter is going to be called animState. And it's going to start off initialized at 0. So I'm going to control the integer parameter in order for me to control my animations, right? So when I transition from idle to walking, I'm just going to minimize this for now. There must be a condition to push me there. I'm going to change my anim state so that when it equals to 1, right, I'm going to transition from idle state to walking state. And then when I go back, if my anim state goes from 1 to 0, so it's going to equal to 0, then it goes from walking back to idle. All right, so I'm transitioning based on a parameter. I'm saying, hey, go to walk. Hey, go back to idle. Right? Yeah. You can do integers, you can do booleans, you can do a bunch of stuff. Blend tree is another way to do it. There's lots of stuff that I mean, this is one way to do it. This is a very simple way to do it. This is the simplest, most straightforward way, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch the integer, and it's just going to switch the state, right? It's going to be pretty rough, a rough cut, but for us, it's going to be good enough. All right, let's see how this works. So I need to program some stuff. So I'm going to go into scripts. First of all, I'm going to save my scene. I'm going to go right into scripts and make a new script. So create a new C# script. And I'm going to call this enemy behavior. I'm going to double click on my enemy behavior. And my default editor here is MonoDevelop. Yours might be Visual Studio or Visual Studio Code or some other editor. That's fine. What I want to do here in enemy behavior is I want to make a reference of the animator inside the player, right? The enemy animator. That's what I want to do. Here's the enemy animator. And I'm going to use public animator. That's the type. Oh, if I can do this properly. I'm just going to call it animator. Right? And then down in my update, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check my keys. I'm going to go, and you guys have probably seen this before, if input got get access, I'm going to check for the horizontal axis. By the way, this will work on keyboard and gamepad. If my horizontal axis is not equal to 0, so anything right now, I mean, normally I'd want to check for the right or the left button. I don't care which button is pressed on the horizontal axis, right or left. It's going to show the walk cycle. That's what I want. Okay? Then I want to say that animator, I can use this keyword if I want, this.animator, right, dot set integer. I can set the integer to, which is called anim state. That's the integer that I created. I want to set it to 1. When I set my integer to 1, I'm shifting my state from idle state to walking state, right? And then what I can do is that the same way I can go back, I can say else. If it's something else, like if it is equal to 0 somehow, so if I stop, then I can just shift it back to 0. I can say, well, then, you know, if I'm not moving, I'm not walking, then I can say that, let's try this again. I can say that the anim state is going to be set to 0. And by the way, if you really want to, you could create an enum, an enumeration. Instead of 1 and 0, you could kind of time it with what it is. So I can say that there's a public enum, which I can call, you know, I can call something like anim state, right? Here's my public enum. And what I could do is I could declare it as an example, I could say that the first state would be idle, and the second state would be walk, right? And if I did that, right? Again, if you hover over anim state idle or anim state walk, this is 0 and this is 1. I could actually set it to make sure. I can say equal to 0, right? And what this will do is it'll set each of these values. So instead of putting a hard-coded value, I could say something like my enum, which is anim states, dot walk, right? And this one would be anim states dot idle. So back that. So then I'll have to remember the numbers. Idle 0, walk is 1. I don't know what it is, but all I know is it's going to match up whatever that number that I'm going to use up there, and I can set them up so that they match with the Animator Controller. Make sense? Okay, cool. So now let's take this thing and attach it to my enemy. So here's my enemy, and I want to attach my enemy behavior script to my enemy. One more step I got to do is in the script it's asking me for in my enemy behavior. Let's just make sure that I saved the script. Maybe I didn't. And what did I do wrong? the best overloaded method. What does it say? Match for Unity Animator set integer int has some invalid arguments. Yeah, so it doesn't like that. I think I have to cast it to an int. So I have to say something like int cast maybe int32. I don't know. I think int will work too. I got to cast it. It's not really returning an integer. It's returning something else. Returning an atom states, and that might be good. Let's try this out. And does it clear it up? Oh, the word int does not exist, so let's try int32. Well, I want to. I'm just casting here, right? So I want to convert this to int32. You're saying lowercase int like this? Oops. I don't think so. I might just go back to the way it was. So int, maybe you're right. Okay, but I think it's int32 that I need. Maybe you're right and I'm wrong. Why is it giving me an error? No, I think it's. I think I'm not doing it right. Let's just put it back to where it was for now. What, the int? The int has to be in brackets? Oh, you're talking about like this, anim state. Okay, that's sorry. I'm thinking about C++. Sorry. I know it's just bizarre. So and let's try the other way around. So this will be. That's what happens, right? When you deal with more than one language, it's like, you know, you always. Let's try that. I know you have to cast it because now I should take away that problem. There we go. And now we have this part here. When I drag and drop the script behavior here, then what I can do is I can take the animator and make that reference. I have to connect the animator here, otherwise it won't work. So I can get the animator that's part of the component. I'm just dragging it from the enemy into my animator script. It's a very quick and dirty way to do it. Okay, and now if I press play, I should see my guy in idle state, right? Here he is. Here's my enemy in idle. But now if I press any arrow, right and left, he'll start to walk, right? So there he is, right? So he'll walk. If I stop the arrow, but there's a problem, right? He stops walking. Why? Because the state is not looping. And back into the animations, if I go back to walking behavior, you can see that loop time is off. I want to click loop time on and click apply. So apply. And if I press it again, now it should work. So there it is. As long as I press it, it'll keep walking, right? If I stop pressing it, it'll go back to idle, right? So there's your enemy behavior. Your enemy can look. You might have another, maybe you can find another rig, mocap kind of information that makes the enemy look around. So he kind of looks this way, maybe looks the other way, looks at you. If he can see, if you raycast from the enemy and he sees you, if there's line of sight, he starts walking towards you. When he gets there, if he's close enough, if the range is close enough between you and your enemy, he uses his punch to punch you. He shows the punch animation, and you take damage. It's pretty straightforward. Very simple AI. Okay, this way. No pathfinding. Okay, questions around this process. This is kind of interesting, but my character is kind of ugly. And what if you wanted to prototype with something more realistic? So there's another tool I want to show you before you guys go, before I check your stuff. Now, for this, you need a subscription to Adobe CC. Okay? So I'm going to stop doing this for a second. And I'm just going to do a couple things with Unity. I'm going to save my model, or save my project, save scenes. I'm going to save my project. And I'm going to quit Unity for a second. I'm going to go up on GitHub, and I want to kind of send that stuff to GitHub. So I'm going to go to GitHub. I'm going to go to George Brown. And what I want to do is just create a new GitHub repo. So a new repo up on GitHub here for you. We'll call it GAME2015-W2018-lesson 6. Right? And then I'll pull up my terminal window. Yeah, sure. It takes 2 seconds. I'll pull up my terminal window. And when I do that, I'm going to go to my desktop. And in my desktop, there's going to be something called folders, and then Unity projects. And then inside there, there's going to be GAME2015 dash winter 2018 dash lesson 6. Okay. There we go. And I'm going to git init, git dot, git commit minus m initial commit, like we normally do. I'm going to say, I'm also going to copy the information for GitHub. So these last 2 lines of code here, I'm going to copy them, go back and right click and paste. And then this should put everything up on GitHub. So now on my entire project, you should have up on GitHub. And it's only like 3 meg. Are we good? So you have the stuff we did today, both in Slack. So you have the Slack model and you have the GitHub Unity project, right? So you can check it out, see if you do something different. But I want to talk about another little tool, right? And by the way, just to check to see if everything's there, you can see that there's animations. You can see all the animations that we talked about. They're right there with you. So the other tool that I like to use for prototyping is something called Fuse, Adobe Fuse. And if I look up Fuse, right, it's actually a really cool tool if I want to create a standard character. So nothing too spectacular. There's not a lot of creativity here. I just want to make a standard character that looks realistic, that has a texture, that I can put clothes on and check to see how it fits in the scene. For now, I'm going to use the fit female. So I'm going to click on fit female. And you get the head of the female. And what I can do is I can check the body. I can choose different kinds of bodies, right? So for example, if I want to go more of a different shape for whatever reason, let's just choose this second one here. And there's my fit female. I want to choose my arm. So I want to choose one of these. Let's choose this one. And then you can have the different leg. Let's just choose this one. Again, I'm just choosing different legs and different arms. There we go. And now that I got that, I can go to clothing, and I can go to tops, and let's put her in some kind of, kind of fitness attire, like this. And I can go to bottoms and put her in some kind of some pants, athletic pants. Go to shoes, and we can choose some running shoes. And I want to go to hair, and let's choose a color. I'm just choosing one randomly. Let's just choose hair. There we go. There's some hair. If I don't like that hair, I can choose something else. I can always change it, something something else, right? So making maybe short hair or whatever, it's perfectly fine. And you can always customize the color and all that later. I can choose eyewear. I can add some glasses if I want, right, to make the model look different. Again, you see her, she's in T-pose. I could add beards and stuff. It doesn't make sense here. No, you can do it for yourself if you want to try this out, right? And now I can put it up on Mixamo right here. This button is directly connected to Mixamo. I'm going to call her, I don't know, Sarah. I'll say Sarah Connor. And then put her up, right? And see what happens, right? See what's happening. So what happens is, this is the great thing about Fuse. Fuse directly connects with Mixamo, right? Yeah. All blend together, and it's perfect model. Like the artists here do a fairly good job of doing proper vertices. It's kind of a medium poly model. It's not a very high poly model. Yeah. Is that you? You can actually add your own too. They give you some, and you can make your own. You put those are all defaults, and you can put as many as you want. You can put as many heads and everything else. In other words, what you could do is take the head, export it, right, as an FBX, take it into Blender, modify the crap out of it, or even modify it right in Fuse. It'll allow you to change the head, the color, the eyes, whatever you want, and then maybe add scars, take it into any other program to deform it, and then put it together as long as it fits, as long as you use a pattern with Fuse. Literally, you can put it up on the auto rigger, and you're good to go. So there's another way of modeling. especially for prototyping some more realistic characters, right? And you can use Adobe Fuse to do that, CC, right? But you have to have an Adobe subscription for this one. All right, so there she is, right? Now, notice that they're kind of saying that she has to have no fingers. I don't want that. I want to add some fingers. Let's add a standard skeleton. And I'm going to update the rig. So now she's going to have fingers instead of mitts. Doesn't make sense for her, right? So now I'm going to add 65 bones, a 65 bone model instead of a 25 bone model. It's a more complex model, right? And there's one thing after this, and then I'll stop recording, and I want to see your, if I can look at your projects just quickly before you go, I'd like to do that. All right, so if you look at this one, this takes a moment to auto-rig for a couple things. What happens is Fuse does what it says it's going to do. It fuses everything together, right, in your model. Then it throws it up on Mixamo to do some of the same stuff we've done already, right? Which is a great workflow. I think it's for non-artists, you know, this is what it's for, right? It's not for artists. This is for programmers, right? You, as a programmer, need some kind of models to work with, right? Your artist might be making the perfect model for your game, right? But this is going to create a model, a stand-in, a placeholder that you can use that's fairly efficient. Let's go next to finish, right? Fairly efficient with your game. And just like before, I have my character in T-pose, and I can do, let's do a Samba dance. Let's do some kind of Latin dancing now. And you can see that she's perfectly, you know, deforming now compared to before, right? So whether I want to do Samba dancing or if I want to do a rifle punch, right here's her rifle punch, right? Or something else, we'll do capoeira, right? Or some kind of crazy kicking. So let's try to do, you know, kind of some kind of kick, right? She'll do whatever you want to do. And this is a great workflow, again, for if you want to, here's some kick, right? Let me just zoom out here so you can see with the whole effect. If you want the kick to be, you know, higher or the intensity greater, you can do that. The emphasis, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. The arm spacing can be adjusted, like we talked about before, right? Right? So you can have her spin and do stuff a little differently, and it's almost perfect. For the game that you would make for prototyping, you can't go wrong with this kind of stuff, right? Mocap's included, characters included that you can include in your game. Is that a hand? Yeah. Hard. It's not, well, you know what? It's coming. I'm guaranteeing you. They're going to do that kind of stuff. Remember, what you could do is, it's just, your face is just a texture, right? So then if you want to change the polygonal shape, then what you'd have to do is, yeah, I remember, that would be awesome if it was like that, but not yet. How about that? It's coming. I'm sure it's coming, because think about this. We're at the beginning, the infancy of, you know, kind of mainstream VR, if you think about this right now. We're not quite there yet. So imagine if you can make your own avatar by using your body and just basically auto-rigging, auto-scaling, auto-3Ding your body into a shape, right? And now you're in there. It looks like you. It has your shape. You can do basic stuff. It'll just follow what you're supposed to do. So really cool. I think this is another great tool to use. One more way to do it, if you don't want to use this, or if you don't want to pay for Fuse or for Adobe CC, is there's some built-in characters, right? Take a look at these built-in characters. They're pretty funny, right? So up in Mixamo, I have this crazy warlord, you know, warlord or whatever he is, right? And he's a pretty cool character. It's pretty scary. And he'll do the attack instead. Or maybe I want to make some kind of parasite Starkey, right? This guy here. So maybe this will fit into my game, right? And you know what? I don't know why the texture, there it is, there's the texture. The textures come in, and I can make it so that it's cool. It's some kind of cool thing. Or I can make a zombie, right? So I can go look down. There's a zombie girl, right? Let's use the zombie girl. And you know what? I want her to be to use a zombie walk. So I'm gonna say zombie. If I put the word zombie in here, right? Instead of a superhero, there is zombie idol. So there's some zombie idol, right? She's looking around, right? And maybe she's going to do some kind of crawling on the ground, right? She's going to crawl on the ground there, right? Like that. And you can also do it in place. So instead of her having some IK motion, You can, so she's crawling in place, so you can move her with your, your stuff, right? So it looks pretty cool. So lots of really great stuff here, guys. Some really good resources and mostly free, right, for you guys. And I think this is great to add into your VR game. Okay, any other questions for this stuff? So guys, just to recap, tonight you've got both your VR assignment, and which is the stuff for me. That's Lab 4 on Blackboard, as well as the assignment for your Agile stuff from Elir. That's also, I think it's assignment 2. He's put up already. Both those pieces, please get them done. One side is worth 5%. The other side is worth 5% for a total of 10% of your final grade due tonight at midnight. And 2 weeks from now, it's going to be happening again. And then you have to also think about that iteration number 2 or sprint 2 is starting today. All right? Otherwise, guys, I'll see you guys next week. If you guys stick around, I want to take a look at your projects really quickly, and then we'll go. All right? Absolutely. Yeah, you can. All the same stuff with Unreal. It just.
So if we were to make our own skeleton like you just did,
yeah.
Bring it into Unreal, can we add sockets to the skeleton?
Absolutely. You can do everything that you normally can do. It's just a rig. Basically, you're getting a mesh with a rig, right? It's all pre-rigged for you.
Yeah. And that's what I noticed. A lot of files would say pre-rigged but not.
Yeah, and you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
So. All right, my friends. Let's take a look at your stuff.